Well, thank you again for the invitation to be with you this morning. It's really brilliant nearby. He was part of things here. He's now part of Christ Church. He remembers you very fondly. There's a guy, Tom Pritchard, who was never a member here, but at the times when he was working at hospital locally, here. So he remembers you very fondly. Abby has just sort of stepped out. East Gospel Partnership Ministry Training Course, which we started that a couple of years ago. We had a gap last year, but it restarted last Thursday, going again. So that is it was such a joy to have Abby and Grace as part of that group. Matt and I know each other quite well. The sort of pastors across the Northeast are getting to know each other better, but at the level of churches and to have sort of partnership beyond pastors, that was a fantastic gift, the course for that year. Jenny, we haven't met before, but you've been pointed out to me as being, Jenny, you are by some distance the most engaged and persistent of anyone who asks us across the Northeast. So that is it's a real blessing, and it's a real blessing to see you here this morning. And I don't know if Glenn's around this morning. Hello. We've met a couple of times, haven't we? Both through coming in for the training course and for that partnership evening maybe a year ago. So what a joy to be here. What a joy to be here this morning. I've heard your church anniversary. So I think we've got on the screen behind us Hebrews 11 going into Hebrews chapter 12. You might know Hebrews chapter 11. It's kind of a sort of heroes of faith chapter. Faith in action is the heading I've got in my NIV. We're going to focus in on chapter 12 and verses 1 to 3, but I thought I'd just give us a bit of a run up at it so we can get into it a little bit. So we get some Joseph, and then we get into some of these sort of more minor characters from verse 32, examples of persistent, persevering faith, which will then take us into chapter 12, 1 to 3, which is where we're going to spend most of our time this morning. But Hebrews 11, starting at verse 32. And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah. Good kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised. He shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured, refusing to be released so they might gain an even better resurrection. By stoning, they were sawn in two, they were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and ill-treated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what has been promised. Since God had planned something better for us, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Well, friends, this morning, Hebrews says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And what we've got is a race for which we need endurance to run it, a race where finishing is a success, and a race where the course is marked out for us. Like the Great North Run. You've got the course, it's put before you, you follow it, you keep going, you get to the end. And at the finishing line, glory. Surely it's the best prize going. What could stop you? What could stop you? Why would you ever stop running? Well, from Hebrews, there are a few reasons, there are a few things that might stop us. One is weariness. Weariness, tiredness in the Christian life. Paying less attention. And we can talk about weariness generally. Lockdown, new restrictions. Well, they've come in for me. Maybe they'll come in for you. Weariness and drifting. So weariness could stop us. Sin could stop us too. Elsewhere, Hebrews says, see that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. Well, if weariness is a bit of a drift and just the side of the race, trying to find a shortcut and getting disqualified. And I don't know if your lockdown experience has been anything like mine, but I've seen more of my own sin in lockdown. I've seen more of the person that I wish that I wasn't and that I wish other people didn't see too. Weariness could stop us running. Sin could stop us running. Maybe it's little put-downs, insults, persecutions, maybe from friends, maybe from family. But after a while, they get too much and we just want to throw in the towel and stop running. So run the race, says Hebrews. Weariness can stop us, sin can stop us, opposition can stop us. Into these, Hebrews says, easily entangles in verse 1. Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. If you're running the Great North Run, you don't take your bag with you. There's some sort of facility. You put your bag into it. You meet it again at the end. You don't take extra clothing. You try and take as little with you as possible. And who is it that we're shown on the TV pictures of the Great North Run? It's the person dressed as a rhino. It's the person out because we think you're a complete idiot. Why are you doing that? Throw off everything that hinders. Years ago now, I was on a school walking expedition. Early into this walk over 2 nights, one of the guys in our group starts throwing up, and you're going, okay, it's not a great sign. And on the last night, in the middle of the night, it became pretty clear that he needed to be taken off the mountain. So there was another group near us. It was the days before the minibus. The lights are in the middle of the night. They take Mark off in the middle of the night and say, we'll come back for his bag in the morning. Now, my friend and I spied an opportunity there. We didn't waste it. We finished with all of our sort of overnight kit. It was just the last bit of walking to go. So we reordered and repacked the bags. We did it by weight. The heaviest stuff went into Mark's bag. And so next morning, Mr. Smithson comes and sort of takes his bag. Pick it up, needs a sort of bit more effort than he's expecting. What's in here? Stuff. And he has to get it up a sort of 45-degree hill to get it back to the minibus. And it turned out he couldn't do it by himself. And the other teacher piles in. The other group are sort of shouting in, oh, how many pints did you have last night? And I think the answer was quite a lot. But even without that, it would have been difficult to get this bag up the hill. My friend and I, we floated home for the rest of this walk because we'd taken off the heaviest stuff. Hebrews says, whatever is holding you back from heaven, get rid of it. Throw it off. Put it away. It could be big stuff. It could be really simple stuff. It could be as simple as TV and the internet. Now, I don't know about you, sort of lockdown measures get sort of put back on us and going, oh, okay, like what box sets can I line up? What new shows can I line up to see? Or the internet that just sort of just have too much of them. Good things that we can have too much that weigh us down and eventually stop us running. Hebrews says, whatever that is for you, throw it off. Throw it off, and the sin that so easily entangles. The sin that you don't notice, but that ends up trapping you. Like running the Great North Run banner there, and before you know it, it's around your legs, your face planted the floor. Again, I mean, it could be the big ticket sin, but it could equally be something like unthankfulness. God's given everything. He's made the world and everything in it. He's made you and me. He's given you everything. Everything you physically have is a gift from him. Every gift or skill you have is a gift from him. But you don't recognize it to you. And your heart has started to harden towards him. That's in the good times, and you can't be thankful in the good times, and the harder times hit, and it's impossible to thank him because you still haven't realized that everything comes from him. And a hard heart has entangled you. Whatever it is, says Hebrews, at this point, Hebrews starts bringing in motivations. The first motivation at the start of verse 1, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. At running the Great North Run, there are crowds all the way down the course. For the Christian life, well, Hebrews 11, to Abel, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, persistent Christian disciples who have endured by faith. They are lining the course of the Christian race, of the Christian life. They have finished it, despite weariness, despite sin, despite opposition, they have finished. Hebrews says, be encouraged by their example. They're on your side. Anyone like Mo Farah or Steve Cram or Brendan Foster cheering you on in running the Great North Run. If I was running the Great North Run and they had the sort of the running celebrity at the start sort of clapping me on, there's some encouragement from that. But they are professional athletes. I am not a professional athlete, and so them saying, I've done it, so you can do it, it generally wouldn't be that encouraging to me. I would find much more encouragement from having an unlikely finisher or unlikely finishers for my life. Then I did a bit of training and I made it to the end. So yeah, some benefit from Mo Farah saying, come on, you can do it, but much more benefit from unlikely finishers. And I think that's what we've got in Hebrews 11. Unlikely finishers, persistent Christian disciples who've endured by faith. Abraham. What did Abraham have? Abraham was given a word. He trusted them. He then got in a right fix with lying before big, important leaders. An unlikely disciple who endured by faith and got to the end. So there is some encouragement from the witnesses, but the supreme encouragement to us as we run this race is there in verse 2. Fixed, don't we, and focused on the finish. With the Great North Run, how does it finish? Well, you go down a steep hill, turn left, and it's the long, long straight up towards South Shields. Fix your eyes on the finish. It's almost impossible to stop. If you look sideways, if you look backwards, if you look inland, if you look out to the sea, look around, you could stop running. So Hebrews says, fix your eyes on Jesus. And it's two things about Jesus that Hebrews tells us to fix our eyes on. Who is the Jesus we're to fix our eyes on? Firstly, the pioneer, the forerunner, and then secondly, the perfecter, the one who completes, concludes, finishes something. Forerunner, perfecter, the one who completes, perfects, concludes it. The first Great North Run, 1981, winning men's time, 1 hour and 3 minutes. The fastest time ever for the race so far, 2011, 58 minutes. Those are different people. It would be amazing, wouldn't it, if you could do those times those many years apart. Those are different people. It is different from the perfecter, and the perfecter isn't guaranteed to always be the perfecter. Someone may run faster than 58 minutes. In the Christian life, in the Christian race, Jesus is both. He is both the pioneer and the perfecter of faith. The pioneer and perfecter of how to believe and trust in God. Something about his humanity here. The pioneer and perfecter of how to believe and trust in God. And the second part of verse 2 tells us what Jesus did that is so exemplary. For the joy that was set before him. Now, think of that for a minute. What joy was set before Jesus when he was on earth? Hebrews 1 gives us some ideas. Let all God's angels worship him. About the Son, he says, your throne, O God, will last forever and ever. Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. That is quite some joy that was set before Jesus. That was quite something that he had to look forward to when he was raised again and went to heaven. But that is all to come. That is all to come in these. He endured, or we could say he persevered the cross. Actively to the end, to terrible death, Jesus endured and persevered the cross, scorning its shame, says Hebrews. Suffering the most shameful death in the eyes of the world, the most shameful death, but Jesus didn't think that the world's view was worth taking into account. He overturned what the world thought was shameful. He sat down, and he is still seated there in heaven. He got the prize. He's on the throne, and he's never going to be taken off it. Run the fastest time at the Great North Run, you could lose it. But Jesus will never be taken off this throne. And so the pioneer and perfecter of faith, some encouragement from the witnesses, supreme encouragement from Jesus, but he's more than an example for us, isn't he? He's more than an example because what he has done is unprecedented. He has opened up a new and living way because he's paid for sin. Hebrews 7 says, he sacrificed for their sins once for all when he... So even more than an example, because Jesus has paid the sacrifice for sins, he's opened the way for us. And if he hadn't done this, we couldn't get in. If he hadn't done this, we couldn't get in. If the bloke who ran an hour and 3 minutes hadn't run that time back in 1981, it would still have been. But if Jesus hadn't done this, made the sacrifice for sins, sat down as the pioneer and perfecter of faith, we wouldn't be able to get into heaven. So friends, today, Hebrews says, don't stop running. Don't stop running until you reach the goal. And you may be sitting here this morning feeling weary. A strength-sapping situation. It may be becoming increasingly joyless to you. Day to day, you go, okay, that's okay. Month to month, I can kind of see how this might work. Decades more of this. You just feel increasingly weary. Maybe you're feeling stuck in sin this morning. It might be a lack of self-control. One of those sort of underrated, under-talked about areas of sin. Going too far in what you say, or in what you spend, or what you watch, or what you eat, or what you drink. And it's sin, like all sin, that so easily entangles. And Hebrews says to you, fix your eyes on Jesus. He was tempted in every way, but without sin. He was tempted in every way. Jesus experienced temptation in the wilderness with Satan. He experienced temptation in the Garden of Gethsemane as to whether or not he should go to the cross. He exercised self-control. And because he was tempted in exactly the same way that you are being tempted right now, he is able to help you. And he helps you because he's paid for your sin once for all. When you fail and come to him, you are clean. As you struggle with sin, fix your eyes on Jesus. Maybe it's persecution that's wearing you down. Maybe it's from friends, maybe it's from wider family. It's the little put downs, it's the we're unhappy with the direct. Maybe it's the direct questions. When are you going to grow up? When are you going to stop messing around with this? When are you going to become a bit more normal and a bit less extreme? And you start to think, surely I can give it a break for a bit. Surely I can ease up a bit. Hebrews says, consider him taken against, he was plotted against, he was tried, he was crucified. He knows what it's like. He's been there. He has opened the way for you. Look at him and see that you won't grow weary and lose heart. Thank you for inviting me to speak on your church anniversary today. To God's faithfulness, aren't they? As well as times to look forward. And we look forward to times of uncertainty, don't we? Perhaps the greatest uncertainty that you have ever faced. Greatest uncertainty as a church, greatest uncertainty as families, greatest uncertainty as individuals. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. But we do know the one who does know. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Amen.
David, for that challenge, really, in many senses, weariness, sin. We know that all of those things are a challenge to us, and yet the wonderful encouragement of Hebrews is to fix our eyes on Jesus, to look to him. And so we're going to listen to a song again, that speaks exactly of that. Yet not I, but Christ in me. We only just started learning it before lockdown to sing together. We've listened to it a few. Prayer, because I think it deals with all of the things we've just heard wonderfully, commits them to song. Take this to heart, remember it. Maybe go away and listen to it again when you get home. But we'll use this as our closing prayer, really. So when the song finishes, the service will be finished too.